Werewolves have not gotten the love in cinema that vampires have gotten, and I don't know why. I don't know what's so hard to get right about werewolves a lot of the time, and yet, here we are again. Welcome to Box of Chocolates, where you never know what you're gonna get. Today you're getting my opinion on the new film, Wolfman, in theaters now, which I was very much looking forward to because I love Leigh Whannell as a director. I think Insidious Chapter 3 is really underrated. I think it might even be the best Insidious movie, honestly. And then Upgrade and The Invisible Man are both fantastic. So after seeing the way he was able to update one of the classic Universal monsters for modern times, make it genuinely pretty scary and effective and interesting with The Invisible Man, I was totally on board with him doing another one with Wolfman. He was attached to the project, and then he left, and then he came back, and I was super happy to have him back, and I thought this could be great. There were some weird things going on with the marketing, but I held out hope. And I do want to start by talking about the positives. We have some great performances. I really like Christopher Abbott in everything that I've seen him in over the last couple of years when he was announced to star in this film. I thought, that's great. I'd love to see him do something like this. Then you have his wife, played by Julia Garner, who's also good, and then their young daughter. That actress is doing a good job as well. Their daughter's name is Ginger, by the way. I get it. That is one of the werewolf films I actually do like. This film does some unique things with the werewolf transformation. That's one thing that vampires definitely have the edge on. You can pick and choose a lot of the various rules that have been established for vampires over the years. Do you have to invite them in? Does garlic work? All these various things that you can kind of choose which ones you want to include. You can invent new ones, and as long as they don't sparkle, vampire fans are not really going to complain. They're usually open to whatever new mythology you want to come up with. Werewolves, it's pretty set in stone. You see the moon, you become wolf. There's not much else to do. But this one does. Instead of just taking it as you see the moon, you transform instantly one time, they treat it as more of a gradual decaying of the human body over time. They've cited The Fly as an influence, and that is very clear as you see sort of the body horror going on as he's falling apart, as his wounds are festering and his face is morphing and he's biting and picking at his own flesh and kind of tearing himself apart and his teeth are falling out, and that was a different way to go about it. The practical effects are really nice, the makeup is well done, whatever CGI there may be is integrated well, it looks good, but it's mostly practical and it looks solid. There are some good moments of, oh, that's a little bit gross. Nothing you haven't really seen before, nothing completely new, but it did look good. It definitely helped with the tragic element because it's not just like a minute or two transformation scene that you have to watch somebody be in pain for. This guy is just constantly in pain, has no idea what's going on, and Christopher Abbott is really good at selling that in all of these scenes, because another thing they do that's unique is they kind of put you directly into his head. You'll get what I mean specifically. I don't want to go into spoilery shit, but when you see it, you'll see that they do a good job at making you understand what he is thinking deep down compared to what the wolf that is really taking control and not letting him act the way he wants to is doing. That was kind of cool. It's another angle that I've never seen in a werewolf movie before. And he's good at showing the terror and the pain and the confusion on his face as he's just devolving into this beast. I really liked the beginning of the movie. I thought it was a good setup. I was liking the characters, the performances, the direction from Leigh Whannell is really solid. There's some good camera work, some good long shots, the way some of the action is filmed, kind of like the way he did it in Upgrade, where he would lock the camera onto the character's movements as he punched and kicked and moved and everything. Similar things are done here, and I thought that was really well done. I always love to see what that guy's gonna do, even though this movie didn't work out as a whole as well for me, but I thought the start established the characters nicely. It kind of established the themes that we're going to be dealing with, how the werewolf was meant to tie into the issues that this family was dealing with. And that leads me into the mixed category. I don't think I have any overt, strong negatives about this movie, but I have a lot that I'm mixed on that drag it down. The themes that this movie explores are pretty obvious. I thought Leigh Whannell did a great job at updating the Invisible Man and kind of having this message about abusive relationships. It was just tied into the plot so perfectly. Here, the ideas that they go for make sense to do with a werewolf. They make sense for what's established about our characters. They're kind of exploring ideas of parenting and the way parents pass certain things on to their children, whether they mean to or not, how parents might be well-meaning, but they end up doing more harm than good with some of the things they do that they think are best for their children. They're exploring certain things like that, and it makes sense. It just feels very obvious. It feels very on the nose. From the beginning of the movie, as soon as you see the first couple scenes, it's very clear what the werewolf is going to represent, and there are even explicit lines of dialogue that are basically the characters just summarizing the movie's theme to you. So it's fine. It's effective enough. It's a good shot at giving a little bit of a deeper meaning on top of what's going on. But it's just a little too on the nose. I also feel like this movie could have used a longer runtime, which is not something you probably would hear me say often. A movie being too long is more of an issue nowadays, but I felt like I needed more time with these characters. I was invested in them enough. But essentially, this movie, in order to communicate its themes, is really kind of playing on the flaws of these characters. The reason they head out into the woods in the first place is because this couple kind of feels like their relationship is strained, and they want to take this time to get away on a vacation. And so when you're talking about their relationship and whatever issues they may have with their daughter, it's not really established all that well. We can tell just based on the way that the couple talks to each other. They're not in the best place right now. We see that she works often, but it's not really gone into that much detail. And you don't need a lot. Like, we understand that people have rough patches in their lives, in their relationships, but in order to really sell these ideas that you're trying to push with this movie, I needed more. These themes are really centered around the characters' flaws, and so I felt like I needed more time with them at the beginning to establish these flaws, because so much of what they show just doesn't really seem that hard-hitting. When you see the ways they actually interact with each other, or the ways they interact with the daughter, maybe they didn't want to go too far with it, because they didn't want the characters to end up unlikable, but they just didn't do much with them at the beginning to establish these flaws that the themes are then commenting on. So I was invested enough in them, and I got what the movie was saying, but I didn't really feel it. So by the time you get to the end, you get the final shot, and it's supposed to mean something. I totally knew what they were trying to convey to me, but I didn't feel it. I sat there cold. The design of the Wolfman has faced much scrutiny. The marketing has been so weird. The design was revealed by like some dude at Halloween Horror Nights or something, just wearing the costume, and that was our first look at it, and people were like, what the fuck is going on? Then they showed it, I think in one of the trailers. There was a still image circulating around social media, and let me say, for the most part, the werewolves in this movie, I did not have an issue with the way they look, especially the first werewolf, the one who actually attacks our main character, the one who's been a wolf for longer and his decay has progressed more and he's got a lot of hair on him. Does not look like your typical werewolf, but I liked the look. The design is not something I typically go to werewolf movies for. The transformation scene is often a highlight. You want to see those practical effects, the body horror of getting twisted and animalized and all that shit. Those are the parts you really go for, but I never go in wondering, what's the werewolf gonna look like? They usually all pretty much look the same. So if you want to do something different, totally fine. And so if you want to play it off as a human body that's decaying, the face is kind of morphing and the teeth are getting sharper and they're getting hairy all over, I think that werewolf looks really good. And even Christopher Abbott's werewolf, as he's decaying, yeah, he looks ugly. He's supposed to. He's falling apart and morphing into a creature. I think the designs are effective with what they're going for. The one issue I have with it is that the final stage of Christopher Abbott's transformation is not menacing. It doesn't have that threatening aura to it. I wish there was something more there. I wish there was one further stage for him, because it doesn't even really look like it's meant to be complete. He still looks kind of half transformed, especially in his face, and I don't know if they were just trying to keep it a little bit more grounded, but you didn't need to as much as you did. You could have gone a little bit further with it. I was fine with the design for the most part, but when I realized that was as far as it was going to go, I did need more. Also, Julia Garner's character, good for the most part. She was a pretty strong character. When something is attacking, she's gonna grab some shit and attack it back. She's gonna try all these various ways to protect her daughter. She was doing mostly a really good job. Mostly enjoyed that character. There were a couple times, though, when I felt like, you're not reacting to this properly. There were some times where what her husband was doing in his state of decay was fairly extreme, to where I was like, okay, you definitely need to be concerned. I know you don't know you're in a werewolf movie, but it is already time to make sure your daughter and your husband stay separate from each other, because it already looks like he could end up being a danger. But she doesn't react that strongly to it, and doesn't seem to want to separate the daughter just yet. There were a few moments like that where the rate of his decay and the rate of her sense of urgency should be growing together, and they didn't always feel like they were. So this is a frustrating one. It's a disappointing one, because the pieces are there. The performances, the direction, the ideas that they were going for, there are some decent scenes of suspense, but it just doesn't all really come together that well. It comes together okay, but not in the way that hits me and will make me want to revisit it. Also, the second act does drag, because we're basically dealing with the characters stuck in a house almost the entire time, while Christopher Abbott is falling apart. And you've got some good effects on there, but we've seen characters fall apart before, and we've seen characters trapped in houses before. And so when that's kind of all you have going on for a little while, and I'm not like super emotionally invested in what's going on because of, I felt like, the lack of time spent establishing these characters, the second act definitely dragged. It didn't feel like much was happening. We're walking around the house a lot. It's a real shame. It's a big disappointment. I was really rooting for it. It has good things to it. If someone tells me they really like this, I would totally understand, and I would get not liking it at all. Werewolf movies, I just don't know what it is. Last October, I actually decided I'm going to use this Halloween month to watch a bunch of werewolf movies and make a top 10 list. I didn't end up doing that because I couldn't find 10 that I really liked. Not even close, actually. If there are some weird, obscure ones out there, recommend them to me, I guess. I don't know what it is. Maybe the issue is just with me, but I don't really think so. If you ask 5 people to name great vampire movies, they're all gonna name a lot of them, and they're all gonna name different ones, because there are different styles and tones and a bunch of different kinds of vampire movies, and you can name a lot of them that are really good. But if you ask 5 people to name great werewolf movies, they're all gonna name the same ones, and they're only gonna name like 3. I really wanted to be able to give this a higher score. Throughout most of the movie, I was kind of toying with what score I would give it, but the ending definitely cemented it. It's a 3. It is okay. I had a fine time. I'm glad I saw it. I don't think I would watch it again. I might be willing to if I'm just watching Leigh Whannell's movies, but it's not something I would feel the need to seek out again, and that's a shame. Big step down from Upgrade and Invisible Man. I think I would also put it below Insidious 3. I think this is his worst movie. And that sucks to say. What is it with werewolves, man? What the hell? My favorite werewolf movie is Trick or Treat. How about that? Don't tell me it doesn't fucking count. Okay, I know it doesn't count. I appreciate the unique direction with some of the werewolf mythology in this. I thought it could be a chance. A director that I love doing something unique with a subgenre that kinda needs it. We even had that movie Werewolves in December. That wasn't good either, god damn it. But alas, I was disappointed today. I actually saw a double feature. I saw 2 movies. Wolfman was the first one. I'll have a review for the other one coming soon. That one disappointed me too, but we'll get to that. I'll always have you, Ginger. This is probably actually my favorite. So we got the first big disappointment of 2025 out of the way. It's one of those films where with every element I can say, I like this, but there's always a but. There's always part of it that isn't as strong as it could have been. But that is all I have to say about that. Let me know your thoughts on Wolfman down in the comments. Whatever you thought, agree, disagree, let's talk about it down there. What are your favorite werewolf movies? Are there some that I haven't heard of? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.